here with David Thomson at the Hub in Kitchener, talking about his books, Blueprint to a Billion and Mastering 7 Essentials. David, welcome back to Waterloo.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's a nice snowy day today.
Yeah, so you have a lot of history in the region.
I went to school at the University of Waterloo and University of Western Ontario, and worked in Quebec and Toronto, and now I live in the US.
So you shared with people today some of the lessons that you've learned, particularly around the growth of companies up to $1 billion. And most of the people that we are in our audience are really early stage technology entrepreneurs. Maybe they're zero revenue, maybe they're 1 or 2 million. And they are they're kind of struggling to move ahead. They can see the big vision, but to be honest, that's not what they're looking at the moment. And you know, many of the entrepreneurs that you mentioned in your book didn't think they'd get to $1 billion when they started. From your lessons, what do you think that could be applicable directly to them? Could they start doing today that would change the dynamics of their business to get them on that high trajectory, even if it doesn't end up being $1 billion?
You know, that's a good point, Andrew. First of all, in looking at the companies that grew to $1 billion in revenue, like Bill Gates and Microsoft started at zero, and Starbucks started with the first cup of coffee, I looked at the companies that ultimately grew to $1 billion in revenue. That didn't mean that they had the perception they were going to $1 billion, but they used early on a set of management practices that actually fueled their growth for the long term. A couple for entrepreneurs that stand out is when you're developing your first product or service, it is about the higher order benefits, even from the very first product. Like my book, Blueprint to a Billion or Mastering the 7 Essentials, isn't a book, is to help you beat the odds of failure to be more successful. What are the higher order benefits? And that's whether you're at 0 or $1 million or $2 million, you got to solve that problem or you're not going to grow. Another one that's really important is, you mentioned earlier, you've got to have customers ultimately help you sell for you. But having been in sales, you might have 10 customers and 2 turn into customers who are so powerful they want to share the word. So you don't need to strike 100% hit rate, but you need to be sensitive to that if you don't get customers who want to spread the word for you, you're not really going to grow at compounding growth rates. Because you can't hire enough salespeople to get a new customer every year.
So getting customers to sell for you is important, but also I'm guessing that having customers that will, by their reputation, encourage other people. You know, if this company is already buying that product, I mean, I guess maybe that's also the strategic alliances, right?
Well, customers don't have to be the Walmarts. Sure, if you sold your product to Walmart just by virtue of the fact they're big and they're Walmart, that's credentialed. But customers who sell for you can be the most innovative in their industry, the fastest growing, but they're not the largest. Right. They're looking for new solutions and they want to do it in an innovative way. So it may be a perception you've got to be selling to Cisco to be a marquee customer, but you could actually be selling to number 2 or number 3 in their market, like Aruba Networks in wireless enterprise at $300 or $400 million revenue now. They're going to become your marquee customer when you're very, very small, for example.
Now in your research, you rely a lot on data from companies that went public, and IPOs and revenue growth. Many of the early stage companies, and those even attracting finance, angel or venture financing, actually their exit is, if you like, being acquired. How do you think setting a target of being acquired by having high growth can link in with strategies that are linked to high growth in terms of market capitalization and IPOs?
I think, first of all, to set context, it's important to differentiate my research from others. There's a lot of work on entrepreneurship about how to start your business and get to a couple million, but I didn't find any work that said, how do I go from a couple of million to great growth? Many entrepreneurs think their goal is to exit, but quite frankly, when I interview large companies, they want to create new billion-dollar business units. So they're out looking for 10, 20, $30 million revenue growth companies that are growing like they're going to $1 billion. In other words, what do I mean by that? They may not know you're going to $1 billion, but if you're doubling every year, within 6 years you're going to be $1 billion. Right. So it's about your revenue growth rate, which is indicative of customer acceptance and a huge market opportunity. And compounding growth rate was characteristic of Google when they were only a couple million. It was a characteristic of Groupon only at a couple million. Now, to your point about, second point about public companies, you can't find the numbers with private companies, but these management practices apply to private companies as well as public, because we're talking about revenue, management, benefits. We're not talking about whether you're public or private.
I guess the point about entrepreneurs looking for those growth rates is that they're very conscious that they need to attract finance, and to attract finance, they need to be able to espouse an exit strategy, and therefore the exit strategy is what makes us attractive to a bigger company.
Yes, a trend I find in the venture community, particularly in the US, is they're moving to later stage and they're looking for high revenue growth companies with positive cash flow because they're becoming more risk averse, which means you need to be building a great business model using the 7 essentials. You may get by, but you've also got to be prepared to grow.
Now, in your seven points about high growth companies, you talk about two things which I thought were particularly interesting and informative for entrepreneurs. One is the inside out management and the relationship you have with your partners, and the other is leveraging board members with expertise. So maybe can you give us some ideas on how the entrepreneurs could do that, because they can do that type of thing tomorrow, but what type of things should they be looking for in both the inside out management and leveraging expertise?
That's interesting. Little side story. So an outside executive or entrepreneur is focusing on customer innovation, alliances, and defining your value proposition, and the inside is focused on running the business and delivering a product. I've got a friend who's a VC. After reading Blueprint to a Billion, he will not invest in a startup unless he sees a pair. And he sends the entrepreneur away to go figure out, are you inside or outside, and get your other half. They also want to find a proof point from a large marquee customer who maybe isn't marquee, but is a customer that can define the benefits and why that company, they want to buy that product or service if the company got funded. So there are huge leverage points in the pair and having one customer at the table for the investor. And now for the board, it's setting up a board of advisors. They may not be a formal board of directors, but will advise you on helping you get your funding or get access to customers. So I've done that with my stock fund. I have the former CFO of a financial institution, retired CIO of a large tech company and a VC on my early investors and board of advisors.
One of the problems that was mentioned by one of my former students in the class this week was in the Waterloo region, there's not that many angel investors that actually understand technology businesses. A lot of people made money as technology are not investing as angel investors, and the people that are investing maybe have family wealth or professional from professional income. How do you and yet they all want places on the board. So how do you create a balance? How do you make it attractive, I guess is the best question, for some of the people that can provide that real level of expertise to come on your board? Is it just an attitude of mind that you'll get them on, or can you show them things that will tempt them to join your board?
Well, it's actually a great question. I'm actually living that now, trying to start a software company here at Communitech. And it's in software. My seed investors are both in the United States and Canada, and I'm really focusing on early seed investors who could sit on the board, who can give us access to customers, markets, or alliance partners, or help us shape the value proposition of our software early on with customers. And we're focused on customer pilots, and the 10 pilots that are currently in the funnel on, many of them are companies that want to invest as a seed investor. So it creates a positive feedback loop in that they're willing to invest as a seed investor. And we're not talking a lot. Friends and family, $25,000 a person. But if I can get a $500 million company to invest $25,000 and help us with pilots for their customers, we've created a positive feedback loop, and that board member investor is helping us grow revenue. And that's how I'm doing it.
Well, David, thank you very much for your time today. I guess we'll see a lot more of you in the Waterloo region, and we will welcome your input in helping us to grow lots of our companies to $1 billion.
I look forward to it. And in the short term, let's just get to 10, then 20, then 40, then 80, and who knows where we're going to go, one step at a time.